Now what happens? Oh my God, it's a big show. You know, I was thinking, how should I engage with people? I must confess, I'm a college dropout. I copied my lazy school examination. And my mother thought I would drop by the streets and be worthless because I couldn't qualify in that age and time to be dictates of the teachers. But I had this imagination and I had the ability to see things and tell stories. So I somehow stay afloat. So let me begin with a small incident in my life, which took place when I was in my primary class. It was a hot summer day. The clock was hinting towards 10 to 4. The teacher had finished her work for the day. She was waiting for the bell to ring. So seeing the students restless, she asked them, anybody tell a story amongst you? And popped went his hand as a me. She says, come. And I walked onto the dais. The feeling of walking from a sitting position up to the dais is an intoxicating feeling. You get the feeling of being a somebody. That feeling never leaves you. So I went there, and the class, the students were there, they were packing their bags. Were wondering what I had to say. And I realized when I went up there that I had no story to actually tell. So being a bullshitter that I have always been, my mind flashed through the billboards that I used to see on my way to school, to the bus. And I remember there was this billboard of an American film called 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So I said, I got a title. So I said, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And then there was this hush. My God, what a title. Even the teacher looked in my direction interested. Now I had to come to the other line. So I said, there was once a man who was hated by the world. And then they looked engaged. And I did not know what to say next. Unfortunately, the bell rang. And when I got down, the voice came to me. Very good, very good, very good. And I thought, oh my God, I just about escaped. So I had a similar feeling that I'm going to be talking to you very eminent people. Do I have a story to tell? Because the bell is not going to ring and get me out of the situation. So I said, yes, I have a story to tell. And the story is my own story, which only I can tell, nobody else can tell it the way I can tell it. Because it's my story. And I can say it with the authority, with the certainty and with the candor that I'm capable of. So I'm going to tell you and talk to you about things from my perspective, realizing that I am now 65 years old. I just turned 65 on the 20th of September. that I do not claim to have some special insight about life. I'm still bewildered by the magic and the mystery of life. I have, in the process of living, gathered a lot of words, picked up concepts, platitudes. I can dazzle, mesmerize, impress, inspire people. But do I really know how to certainly deal with moments of uncertainty? The answer is no. That's a sales pitch. Everybody tells you, let me equip you how to deal with life which is going to unfold. The future has not happened. It's going to happen. How can you be armed for something which is not even happened? All you can talk about is the past, how you have coped with the things in the past, and hope that what has worked in the past works in the future, but it doesn't quite happen that way. So I began my journey at a young age of 20. I became a detective at the age of 20. And I joined the movies because I didn't have any skills to do anything else, to be a doctor, an engineer, or anything else. So I was sent into the movie business. I still remember that afternoon in the Mehboob studio, Mr. Raj Khosla, the eminent director, asked me, do you know anything about movies? I said, no, sir. And he gave me the most heartbreaking smile. He says, 0 is a brilliant figure to begin from. I think the first thing is, let us have the audacity to be at the threshold of infinite ignorance. I may know a lot, but there's so much that I don't know, and no one in this world can claim to know, claim that he knows absolutely everything. There is something which I want to read out from a book from what he mentioned about this friend of mine, Yuji Krishnamurti, friend, philosopher, guide, not a guru, not a god man, who left some quotes of his with me, which I have put in a small book of questions. There are 2 quotes which hit me this morning when I was on the flight. And I want you to give your heart and listen to that. He says, you think when you don't want to do anything. You think when you don't want to do anything. Thinking is a poor alternative to acting. Your thinking is consuming all your energy. Act. Don't think. I always tell my friend Ajay Kanchan, who is responsible for luring me into Gurgaon, that I'm always fired first and aimed afterwards. And most of the schools and the training skills that you acquire teach you how to aim, and then your finger trembles, and you never fire, and you drop dead. So I learned filmmaking by filmmaking. As Mao Zedong said, you learn swimming by swimming. So I always tell my friends who come to, youngsters who come to meet me, that before you stand up to write, sit down to write, first stand up and live. If you don't live, how the hell can you write? So how should I begin to tell you the story about the brilliantly uncertain world of movies? I tell people that I failed my ways. I failed my way to success. I failed so many times, the success finally came my way. The strike rate in our business is 1:5. I've had more, but I've doubled my rate of failure. That's how I've doubled my success rate. I've never been frightened when I've failed. I've always realized that I can get up and start all over again. And that's how I've reinvented myself for 40 years. In every decade I've reinvented myself with different kind of movies. But I realized only one thing, that fear is the number one enemy in any business. It paralyzes you. It doesn't make you act. And you normally land up saying things which are acceptable. I was introduced as a person who was iconoclastic and path-breaking. I didn't do anything iconoclastic. I just said what occurred to me, and I had the guts to say it the way I lived it. So I began my journey in the world of movies when I was 20, and I started making films the way they told me to make films, and they did not work. So my 20s were the most turbulent times of my life. That was a time when I got married at the age of 21, I was a father at the age of 22, I made a film which was banned by the censors called Manzile Aur Bhi Hain, because it was accused of subverting the sacred institution of marriage. And I dropped LSD, I went through the spiritual bazaar, I went and sat down on the feet of masters like Osho Rajneesh, listened to the discourses of the greatest thinker India produced in the last decade, J. Krishnamurti. And I did that all because I couldn't make a mark. I had got into the world of movies and failed. And why I had failed? Because I had made movies on the terms of the marketplace. They told me these are the movies that work. So I made them. But they did not work. Then I met this man called J. Krishnamurti who dealing me from the whole spiritual bazaar. I said, look, you are going into the spiritual market because actually you don't have the guts to fight in the dog world which is out there. That's the only reality. Stand on people's toes, climb on their shoulders, that's the world. You have to go and fit in there. Fight. This kind of detour is not going to get you anywhere. So I was back into the real world. And then I made, after a catastrophic 20s, I call that the most traumatic phase of my life, and yet it laid the foundation for my life, on which I built my entire edifice. I had a broken marriage, I had an extramarital affair, I had seen madness, and I hit the rock bottom. And then I made a film called Art. A film which looked at the woman of India through brave new eyes. It articulated the woman's desire for self-emancipation. And it was plucked out from my own lived truths. But I did not tell it from my perspective. I chose to tell it from the perspective of my wife, whom I had wronged. And through the eye of the girlfriend, whom I had perhaps also wronged. And through the eyes of the women, whom we befriend. And we never look at the world from their perspective. And when I made Art, the problem of certainty again loomed over ahead. And will this movie work? How is it going to be received by the people of India? Because it had the most path-breaking climax, where the philandering husband comes back after his relationship with his mistress ends to his wife. And the wife asks, if I had come back to you having done the same thing, would you accept me? And the husband says no, and she says goodbye to him and walks away forever from him and doesn't jump into the boyfriend's bed. She also says bye-bye to the boyfriend and chooses to walk on her own two shaky feet and says, however shaky they are my feet. I made this film, and they said, but there's no way this film is going to work. So I said, why? This is what I know the women clamor for, they thirst for. They may not be able to do it, but they fantasize about this kind of freedom. Because when you are in the prison, you think of these gorgeous flights that you want to take. And the women would embrace it. They said, no, change the ending. Everybody who was a somebody, including my boss who had told me zero is a great figure to begin from, saw my film and said, look, you've had 4 flops, you had a disastrous 20s, you made a good film, but let the film end the way the Indian cinema has been ending films. Let the husband come back and let the wife forgive him. I said, no, sir. He says, then go, face the music, you're going to have a disaster. All the people in the marketplace, well-meaning, said, this won't work. What did I do? I said, I will fall I will fall on my own terms. I will fly on my own terms. Arts released, it became a big hit. And the reason it became a hit was because I stuck to my guns. Moral of the story is, nobody in my business knows a damn thing. I have been in this business for 40 years. I may have a lot to show. But my friends, I have made more flops than hits. Somebody asked the great Alia Kazan, a great American filmmaker, when he was pontificating about cinema for almost a week. A young kid got up from there and said, Mr. Kazan, you've been talking to us for 1 week about cinema. The cinema should be this, acting should be this, editing should be this, drama is this is what the audience wants. How come a man like you has got, and he read out a long list of movies which are box office disasters. And there was this hush and hum, silence, explosive silence in the room. Everybody thought that this impertinent student had embarrassed Mr. Kazan. Mr. Kazan smiled, he says, well son, that's the charm of the business. That's the charm of the business. You may know everything, but yet you can go down there and be certain that the chances of your film flopping are more. Then, how do you begin? Every time you go out there, think of an idea, how do we go about giving it form? How do we go and market it? Belief. The unfortunate truth about my business today is we have a lot of marketing skills today, but we have very few believers. Mahesh Bhatt is perhaps the only filmmaker in this country who has made 2 flops with Shah Rukh Khan. It means what? That whenever he thought he was leaning on some superstar, on whose back he's going to take a piggyback ride and say no, the audience says, get out, don't fool us. That was an act of crookery. That was name setting. That was like nowadays you all must know that even bad films have very good promos. So you can fool people to come into the hall, but you can't keep them there. But when I made films with rank newcomers, but I gave my heart to them, they worked like magic. The last film of mine, Ashiki 2, was made for 9.5 crores of rupees and it's done more than 110 crore business. Why? Because we took a team which believed it. The writer of Ashiki was a girl who was in the flesh market. She went and danced in the bars, but she came to my office having lived life and said, look, I have lived life like you keep on saying, life in the raw. I have a fire to write. Can you give me an opportunity? I will learn under you. I took her under my wings. She gave me 4 hits one after the other, and the last was Ashiki. She doesn't know to read English. She does not know to write English properly. She's a self-taught girl. But the hit was delivered because of her hard work. So, it means what? It means the raw material of life, if it's not there, your marketing skills will not work. So how do you work with uncertainty? Can you ever will you be able to deal with uncertainty? The answer is no. The market doesn't want to be uncertain. Every week, the audience tells you, no matter how big the name is, we are not interested. Yet, for 1 year, the investors want certainty. So they look at the performance of the filmmaker or the actor in the last film. Based on that, they begin to make another film, deluding themselves it's going to work the next time. And it doesn't work. So I when I gave up direction in 1998 and I said, I'm only going to promote young talent and do what is kind of mentoring, I said they're going to be working without stars. Everybody talks about self-sufficiency. Self-sufficiency, it's easier said than done. It's very difficult to be what China has achieved. It's very easy to be a Pakistan. So I thought, let's be self-sufficient, let's not depend on any star. And so we started making movies, and I moved 180 degrees away from the kind of cinema for which I was known, Sara, which you mentioned. And then in the 2000, I made a different kind of cinema, which had erotica, which had, according to a section, sleaze, music, right? In your tinker's jam. I was not going to be trapped by the bogus, this greatness that was being put on my head. I said, I'm here. The world has changed. The 80s are different from the 21st century. India, from the Soviet socialist construct, has moved into a neoliberal economy. The youngsters are seeing content on digital, through digital space, in the World Wide Web. So I have to change my cinema, and I changed my cinema. In the last 15 years, we have come to a point where we are the only company which gives maximum return on investment. Our strike rate is stunning, and that is because we changed and we realigned ourselves to the times that we are living in. An organism that doesn't adapt to change dies. Dinosaurs did not die when they were not being. Dinosaurs died because they couldn't adapt themselves. And so I met a lot of my buddies with whom I used to share the same platform, because we were all award-winning great directors. And they said, oh, you have sold your soul. I said, yes, whether you sell soap or you sell salvation, you're still selling. I have no problem. I'm in the feel-good industry. I'm in the amusement business. It's a very difficult thing to use. So I did not let my own non-existent greatness weigh me down, shackle me, because your yesterdays become a burden. And so I've survived for 40 years by continuously reinventing myself. But then the Barbie dolls did the same thing. The great Amitabh Bachchan did the same thing. This reinvention has been the way to cope with uncertainty. Because the need to be relevant to the generation of my friend son, Harsh, is mine. And I have to understand what he wants. And yet, on the surface, he wants something which is different and distinct, but deep down, his yearning is for the same old narratives which amused my grandmother and my father. The storytellers face this obvious truth as a journey through life, that the mythologies of the regions that they live in track them. Whether you like it or not, the mythologies of this country, that are the great Mahabharata, the great Ramayana, are going to influence your narratives. Because that's where the audience lives. They consume that narrative, so your stories are within that. I'm reminded of our conference I was invited to in Bangkok, where I was supposed to speak to creative heads of a very renowned advertising company called Amadeus Purus. I do not know why they called me, so I was told by the Amadeus Purus representative in Mumbai that their boss saw me on some television program in London and said, get this guy, I want him to go and talk to the creative heads, his tone and his tenor. So they gave me a free ride to Bangkok, and I went to Bangkok, and I saw all these very bright creative heads discussing the same thing. How to be certain in uncertain times. So I said, you presume that I know. You presume, first of all you presume. And you pay for my ticket and bring me here. Give me this pasta. Do you a great favor and go back. I'm saying I don't know. And I can live with that, not knowing. So the question was that they were sitting down discussing and looking for that holy grail. I have my life story, like I've been rambling about my life story. I started here, did this. I said, look, there is a river flowing. I go to that river with a bucket, and I fill that bucket of water and bring it to a laboratory. And I sit down there and I endlessly analyze the contents of that bucket. And I pile up information with all the experts and say, now we understand the river. You fool, you don't. The flow is missing. There's no flow. There's a different river flowing outside. You got a dead bucket of water and you think you've understood the river? What arrogance. So, the only thing we can do is gracefully, in a very dignified way, state that sometimes it works, most of the time it doesn't work. So I tell friends, what my friend Ajay Kanjay just told me that there was reminded of this. I often say, when people ask me, so why don't you give a talk about your life? I say, look, I'm like that stray dog who somehow makes it across the street at peak hours. Somehow. Having made it across the street, I have no business to get onto a podium and give lectures. My friends, the flow of the traffic is different. It's another day. If I give them my biography and say now, duck here and turn here, you will get crushed on the very first minute it is run across the street. So all biographies, all autobiographies can be used by you guys who don't get a good night's sleep. But if you try to pick up and emulate your life on that, your life will be a disaster. I tell you, there is no compass, there is no map. The compass is not needed, your heart will tell you. Because you are, I mean, Mother Nature has gifted every organism with the survival skills. There's a human jungle we have created. You have to learn the language of this jungle to survive here. There's a school that will teach you how to fence, how to fight with the rival. Learn that, go there, sing your song. But if you ask me, is there a recipe? Is there a holy grail? Have I understood something more than you guys have? The answer is no. And this is what I asked a great scientist who I was interviewing. He was an astrophysicist, I can't find his name now. Interviewing him in the British Council. An Indian scientist, forget his name. Old age is now finally taking over. I asked him, I said, sir, you're an Indian scientist who has made India very proud. You know a lot about the universe. You can explain the magic and the mystery of the universe. But tell me, sir, when you were young and stupid, and you were in Pune, you must have looked at the star at night and asked your grandmother, can you explain to me what are those things up there? And your grandmother must have told you fantastic stories, enchanting stories of Parlo and Ishwar there, and Lord Indra, and all those things, and Lord Brahma, and all that. And that must have satiated your curiosity. And then you went to school, and then a new breed of teachers came and told you the atmosphere, the stratosphere, and all those, the jargon you picked up. And you thought that your grandmother was stupid and you knew something more. And now you've gone into another league and you sit down with the topmost scientists in the world. And you can explain the magic and the mystery of life. But tell me honestly, sir, when you walk under the starlit night, aren't you still bewildered? Don't you honestly face the fact that you don't know a damn thing? He looked at me and says, yes, I don't. So then he gave me an answer which I want to leave you with. He said, I don't. But I have the courage to say I don't.
And he said, Mr. Bhatt, I want to leave you with this. And he said, what? He said, look, life is like a cinema hall. And there's a movie going on there much before you were born. And when you come of age, they say, get inside and watch the story of mankind there. And you get inside, and if you have a person on the next to your seat who's good enough to ask him, hey, what is the story of the picture so far? If he's good enough guy, he'll tell you, which जहाँ से मैंने देखी वहाँ से यहाँ तक कहानी है. अब तू आगे देख. And then I sit down there and I watch the film, and somebody says, okay, dying time, get out now, leave. So I come out and people say, hey, what is the story of the movie going inside? So all that I'm doing is I can say, from the time I went in there, I was told the story till then was this. By the time I have left, I know the story so far is that, but I don't know what the hell is going on inside. So the scientific community can say, I don't know. The religious fellow says, I know it all from where it started, where it's going to end. That's the only difference, he says. So I think sessions like this, if we can only, in these sessions like this, deepen our sense of humility, I think it will serve the purpose. Because only when the cup is empty can it be filled. That's why all masters first पहले खाली करके ला, अपनी खोपड़ी को खाली करके आ यार, भरा हुआ आया मेरे पास. Empty yourself, and what do you know? Platitudes picked up from here, there, everywhere. Do you know more than your grandmother knows? This because you have access to Google. I think what we are losing as a nation is a sense of humility. And humility is the only state where knowledge can step in. So, and we have the ceremony of great Ganesh Utsav in our country, in Maharashtra. We bring the Lord Ganesh, we celebrate, we make our prayers, but we have to finally do the Visarjan. It's only when you let go of your gods that the prayer is complete. We have to let go of our certainties. We have to let go of our certainties and live in the heart of uncertainty. It's only in the heart of uncertainty that you'll be fully awake, you'll be fully alive. Because the moment you get a sense of certainty, you sleep. You sleep on the driving seat, and then you have accidents and kill people. Another lesson I learned from my ancestors is the hall is full with claps, shut up, and end your speech. So now while you still clapping, let me end my speech, I have nothing more to add. All I'll say that you're all very brave people, you all have a great life ahead of you, but do what I did. If a moron like me could make it by living with uncertainty, all of you are brilliant people, you can do it. Just go ahead and do it.